So if you're listening to the show, you might know that I have been going through shit lately. And this really made me think that I would love to offer my group program, the Urban Cleanse group program. But this time I am part of the group. I would like to go back to losing the weight that I gained these past couple of years. And I would like to feel better in my own skin. And I know a lot of you do too. And I do know that my program does work if I only did it myself. So if you'd like to join, please go on www.organilicious.ch, click on the Urban Cleanse button and join us. It'll be loads of fun. We'll do it together. I will be your support, your knowledge, as well as your team member. I'm looking forward to see you there. Thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Lesley Calvo. I'm a mindset and energy coach. I am today's guest on the So Freaking Healthy podcast. And today we'll be sharing with you and talking about how we can use non-traditional ways to be able to deal with depression, anxiety, fears to allow you to lead an easier, freer, happier, and more successful life.
Hey Donna, how you doing today?
Hey Megan. I almost don't want to answer that question somehow.
Really? Please do tell what is on your mind, Donna.
So you already know this, but for our listeners, as you know, we just jumped on this whole journey of starting a podcast together, and we're just experiencing a lot of technical issues, and it's driving me fucking ballistic.
Yeah, I mean, I always have prided myself on a person who's been able to handle like new platforms, new tools, and even I have become frustrated at our situation. So we started using Zoom, and I think actually the entire world knows how to use Zoom now, and we should have all bought Zoom stock in February 2020. And we said, okay, that's fine, but we want to do video, right? And I think that's definitely something we haven't talked about yet on the podcast, but YouTube is a whole platform in itself. And we thought, okay, we're both, semi-likable people and we have pretty good smiles. So maybe we could also put our faces out there. And as another way to like meet people. And so we said, okay, so we should definitely have video and audio. And so we're doing all these things. We're using these platforms that are meant for podcasters, like separate audio, separate video, separate this, and then the editing software that's meant for podcasters. And somehow all these beautiful things that are supposed to work, I think they're just so new. They're so in their infant stages, I feel, or somehow, as I think you mentioned the other day, when you step into the realm of something, somehow your energy just shuts down technology.
I don't understand it because I'm the same as you. Like, okay, in the last few years, I just gave up on that shit. But I was always like, all right, new program, let's do it. Easy. Let's just give me an hour. I'll figure this shit out. But man, oh man, when things break, when you don't even touch them,
yeah,
that's just bad juju. I don't know what it is, but we're fighting through it, listeners. So please bear with us. We were hoping to already have more episodes out. We're struggling, but we're pushing through, which means a lot because I know that if I was on my own, I would have been like, fuck this shit. I'm moving on. I'm not doing this anymore. And I know that Megan would have been the same, or maybe Megan would have stretched another month and then would have been the same. But because we're doing this together, I feel like that this is exactly why. I feel like we're going to push through. We're going to make this happen because we have such gold waiting for you to be heard, to listen to. And
speaking of good stuff, so we have a good guest today, and I'm excited to meet her because you've met her. Well, I mean, she's your friend, or you've known her longer than me. So I like the fact that a lot of our guests I don't know, because I feel like I get to meet all these new people. And again, that's kind of the reason why we keep doing this, is because it's just such a lovely thing to meet new people and to really dive into these good topics. So we will persevere through our technical issues and we will be coming at you soon.
All right, let's talk to Lesley now, and hopefully she'll make us feel a little bit better about our struggles. Hey, Lesley, welcome to our podcast. How are you doing?
Hey, Dana. Hey, Megan. Yeah, doing really well. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. Pleasure to be here.
We're super excited to have you on. For our listener, Lesley is just a gorgeous, gorgeous human being. She's a mindset and energy coach. And I don't remember even when we met, but I just know it was an instant, like birds were singing. I was like, I love this lady. I don't know why there was like a direct connection. And when I heard your story, which I can't wait for Megan to hear and for our listeners to hear, I was like, wow, we have a lot more common than we actually think. So I'm super ready to dig in and ask you a bunch of questions, but I want to hear from you first of all, because that's usually our first question. Why are we having you on a So Freaking Healthy podcast? Why is your job connected to health?
That's a great question. Thank you, Dana. Yeah, and I had the same thing when we met as well. It was gorgeous. Yeah. So because I believe that health, I work with people's mental health. So I work, and I believe in the same way that you wouldn't feed yourself rotten food, you shouldn't feed yourself rotten thoughts. And I believe that a lot of our psyche and our soma, so our mind and our body, are linked. And I believe that you need both elements to have a truly fulfilling and healthy life.
No, it was beautiful. It was nice. It's like a poem almost.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Megan.
It's so true. And Megan and I think it's probably said it a few times already on other episodes, where the common ground that Megan and I have as a health coach is that we went to the same school where they do talk about the primary food and the secondary food. And the primary food is actually physical activity and relationships and career. And so everything kind of that we're looking at in terms of a psychological, emotional, and physical aspect, and that's the primary food, right? So we always say, like, you can eat the most beautiful food, but if you're stressed, chronically stressed, or if you're depressed, or if you're kind of like not balanced within yourself, I like to say, then yeah, the food will only do so much, but you're not at a healthy state. And so I love that you're actually focusing on that. And I think that's where we always discuss how we complete each other in that way, where, you're really working on the psyche and how that all works and how all of that falls into place. So I think it's a perfect place. I know we're jumping right in, listener, but I would love for everyone to hear your story, right? How you actually even got into this and what happened to you in the past that actually made that happen.
Yeah, thank you. I love that as well with the primary and secondary food. I'd never heard of that. So thank you for sharing that with me, because I think it's really, really powerful and so true. So yeah, I'll tell you a bit about my story. So I have always been an entrepreneur, but I haven't always been doing what I'm doing. I left university when I was 26 and I wanted to build my own business. I did a jewelry design degree and I was like, right, I want to be a jewelry designer. So anybody who knows who's started up their own business at the beginning, I had 2 jobs. I was trying to hustle to make it happen. I was like a cleaner and doing all these things. And then I built it and I grew it. And actually quite quickly, it became like a global success. I was selling all around the world. At the same time, I was consulting for companies such as Cartier and Dior and Vivienne Westwood. So from the outside, my life looked like, I had everything. It looked perfect. And, I'd bought all the shiny things, I had a house, car, done all that stuff that we're sold is going to make us happy. Though on the inside, it was a very different story. I was at the time massively depressed, hugely anxious. I had massive anxiety. I had imposter syndrome. I was like crippled with the feeling that I was going to get found out at any moment, that I was just I was a fraud, and that was feeding my depression. I had depression at the time, and I was very suicidal as well. I had many times when I didn't think I was going to make it. And I really remember there was one particular moment where I I was laying on my kitchen floor and I was like, you know, I'm out of here. I'm this, you know, I just can't do this anymore. I can't carry on anymore. And it was like, it was almost like a light bulb went off in my head at that moment. It's like, right, something has to happen. You know, and I decided at that moment that I really was determined that I was gonna live. You know, I wanted to be here. I didn't want to check out. I really wanted to be here. And so at that point, I decided I needed to do something to find out how I could change the way that I thought and felt about myself, because that was the problem. I was living in like a prison of my own thoughts and my own self-hatred, really. You know, I was just, I was in a really a space of just feeling that I just wasn't, you know, that I remember even at a time thinking that people were better off without me, you know, that my even my like closest friends and family. And so at that point I was like, right, I have to do something. I can't carry on anymore. So I decided to study how the brain works, because I knew my thoughts weren't healthy. And how I felt. I was like, you know, okay, how do I change how I feel? How do I change the energy? How do I change my body? So I went on a bit of a mission at that moment, and I became an NLP master practitioner, which is learning how the brain works and how the linguistics in your head, how you can change them. I became a hypnotherapist. I became a Reiki master. I was going in and joining satsangs worldwide with great masters, meditations, and I began to transform my life. So things started to change in my life, and I started to realize that, you know, everything that I was doing, people started to notice around me, and they started to ask if I could help them. And then at that point I realized, actually, everything I'm learning is teachable, because I helped a few people and it transformed their lives. And I was like, ooh. And what I was doing with jewelry, it was really passionate about empowering women. You know, that was my thing. I was like, I wanted to make them feel good about themselves, but it was by putting on something external. And then what happened when I started to work internally for people, I realized that this was a lasting change. It wasn't going to just be taken on and off, that this was something that could transform them from the inside out. And then that started to grow, and I started to feel like this is it, like genius moment. It's like, this is what I'm here to do, because I have like a natural, I'm highly intuitive, so I get a sense of what people need to expand and transform their lives. So, and then as that grew and grew, then I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And it's the most amazing job, because I'm seeing people who literally come to me feeling depressed or feeling stuck, feeling small and grey, and then they leave feeling expanded, living the life of their dreams. It's really, really amazing. So I sold my jewelry business, and I've been doing this for 15 years now. So yeah, that's my kind of story in a nutshell.
Wow, that's amazing. It's an interesting leap from jewelry to health, but when you explain it, it makes perfect sense, right? And I think that one of the things that stuck out to me is you named a couple things when you were talking about what you did when you were learning NLP, hypnotherapy, Reiki. Now, I personally only learned about these things probably about 3 or 4 years ago, when I started also looking, you know, at my health coaching journey. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about each one of these things, kind of just break them down into like the NLP for dummies, Reiki for dummies? I'm sure at least one listener, and that's the listener called my mom, who has never heard of these things. So could you explain it for all of us who have never heard of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually since then I've added a lot more of modalities that I use, so I can talk a little bit about them as well. But NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro, the brain, linguistic, language, and programming. The way that our brain works, we have thousands, if not millions of bits of information coming to our brain at all times. But your brain can only keep between 7 and 9 pieces of information at a time. So what your brain does is it distorts and deletes the information. So if you were going to describe a situation that happened last week, it would be completely different from how I describe it. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah. So So the way that the brain works, and what NLP does is it uses the way that your brain holds this information, because our brain holds it either through picture form, through sound, or through feeling. They're the main things that everyone has. They're called modalities. And what you do is you use exactly the same way that the brain thinks and holds this information. You can use it to change your thoughts and feelings and beliefs very rapidly, because it's almost like you use the language of your brain, and you're also using the language that you use to help people to make shifts and make changes in their life very quickly. It's an amazingly powerful technique. So that's NLP. Is that clear for NLP?
Yeah, but I feel like when you're describing that, it sounds like a tool that could be for very good, but could also be used for evil.
Do you know what it was? Yeah, it was used. It got a really bad name at one point because it was used in advertising a lot. So it was used. So it was taken in because the guys I actually trained and met one of the guys who invented it, who was the creator of NLP, and he did it purely for helping people transform their lives in a positive way. Though it was taken because you can manipulate people with it. You can, because with language and stuff, and it was used a lot for advertising. So it got a bit of a bad reputation at one point, though it's down to the individual practitioner, and for you to feel the individual practitioner and feel that that you click with them, that you believe that they have honest intentions. And actually most people using it, I'd say everyone using it actually in the self-help and self-development area is doing it for good. Advertising, maybe they're doing it because they want to persuade you in some way, but I think most practitioners are using it in a powerful way that helps you to transform and change. But yeah, it's a good point you brought up there, Megan, because it can be used in that way.
And so when you learned how to do NLP, was that something like, because a lot of times we're talking about a client and practitioner situation where someone knows what they're doing. So is that a situation where you can basically practice on yourself in order to, or do you need somebody else who knows NLP to kind of guide you through that?
You can learn it. You can learn it yourself, though it's much more powerful if you've got someone assisting you with it, in the same way as, often you can't see what you can't see. So there's parts, you've got parts, beliefs maybe, and ideas about yourself that are just so ingrained into your being or into your identity that you're not aware that they can even be changed, whereas when you're with a practitioner, what I do with people who I work with, I use lots of different modalities as well. NLP is just a small part of what I do. They can actually see those areas that can be shifted and changed, and then they can help you out. So it's more powerful when you do it. You're having it done to you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like even with the health coach, we know, but it's also it's beneficial to have somebody else asking the questions. So I think that's kind of what I was getting at. It's because a lot of times people, you can do a lot on your own in terms of awareness, meditation, mindfulness, these kind of things, which are obviously can be learned and practiced on your own. But it's like, for me, like yoga, for example, of course I can do yoga on my own, but I prefer to do yoga with somebody who can come and kind of give me a small correction or put a little pressure somewhere, to get you deeper into a position. I feel like that's the same for NLP and also for coaching. And I'm assuming for hypnotherapy as well. I think you probably need a practitioner for hypnotherapy, right?
Yes, you definitely need. Well, you can put yourself in trance as well, as long as you have ways. If you're experienced hypnotherapist, you can get yourself in and out of trance, and we're actually in and out of trance all the time. It's a natural phenomenon. So when you hit the snooze button, when you and it feels like it's been 2 seconds or it's been ages, or another way is when you're driving and you've been past a few different stops on the motorway, and then you're suddenly like, oh God, I'm here. So trance is a natural phenomenon that we're in and out of all the time. But when you use it in this way to actually help people make lifelong lasting changes and transformations, then you need someone to go in with you. I'd say with the NLP as well, if you want, because there's a level you can do on your own, though. If you really want to change beliefs that have been holding you back, or behaviors that you've been doing or patterns that you've been doing for a long time, then you really need someone to come in with you and help you and support you in it. But yeah, hypnotherapy is it's amazing because you actually use the person's unconscious mind, And there's another a really powerful technique that I use called cognitive phenomenological therapy, which is actually everyone has within them their own inner healer, their own inner wisdom, and you use that, you connect to that part. It's like reconnecting them to their soul, and then their soul is the one that heals them. It's amazing, like it's profound, the results and the speed of the results that we get with that. But yeah, you're using the person's subconscious, unconscious mind to help them heal themselves.
I think that's incredible, because I think that there's, I've been on my own health journey for more than a decade. And I think that there's a lot to say about every coach needs a coach, as we're all saying here, because you always see something as an external person, right? As a third person, you always see things in a little bit of a different light. And the fact that you're not just projecting things on yourself, we all know the self-sabotage that we grew up with, of just speaking to ourselves in a way that I would never dare to speak to any of you in a way that my brain speaks to myself or my children or my husband. There's no way, but we tend to do that to ourselves. And so I think that external person is definitely the one who's gonna go like, whoa, wait, you don't deserve, being told that you're terrible or that you ruined everything, or that whatever it may be. But I think that in terms of, just tapping into the subconscious, I think there's so much there, because there are things that could have happened when we're even too young to remember, let alone the fact that most of the memories that we remember are not actually accurate. I mean, like, the things that we remember could be because of a story that was repeated to us, and it's completely different actually than what we were told. Or, when I speak to my sisters and we talk about the same exact event, same exact time, and each one of us will have a different story. And it's not because any of us are wrong. It's just because we each saw it from a different direction. We each remembered it in a different way. And so now it's ingrained in us in a different way. But it happened the way that it happened. But, it's just how we perceived it. And so it's a bit of a mind fuck on the one hand, because you're kind of going like, oh, wow, that's just kind of crazy. Because then, did the tree make a noise when there's no one in the forest type of question? Like, what actually happened? But does it actually matter? No, because the question is, how did it affect you, and how is it affecting you on a day-to-day? And what can you do to use that power to actually help yourself to come out of a certain funk, or come out of a certain pattern that you don't necessarily want to continue with in life?
Absolutely that. And it's interesting, because that self-sabotage that you were talking about is created from those experiences. And we start to limit ourselves at a really young age, because we're born infinite. We're born with joy and happiness as our birthright. If you look at a child, they are, they're just there, unless there's something actually wrong, they're just, having a nice time. They're not comparing themselves to other babies. They're not like thinking, okay, oh God, when they first walk, they're not saying to themselves, oh, I'm obviously not a walker. Look at all those other babies who are walking and I'm not walking. They just, we're in a completely different state. And what happens, we start to limit ourselves with ideas about our identity, what we can and can't do. And we start to label ourselves and give ourselves these stories about ourselves. And what happens is thoughts become beliefs. And when we have beliefs and limitations, then our actions start to change because of them. And they're only thoughts and they're only beliefs. They're not you. They're not solid. They're not you, though they've been there for a long time, so they feel like you. And actually, when you unpack them and change them, and you can go underneath and release those beliefs and set them free, and you can see yourself in a new way and give yourself a new story and new labels, then your life can completely change, like completely, in every single way. Like I speak from personal experience. I used to hate myself. Now I completely and utterly love myself, and not in a way that's big-headed, just in a pure, I actually like who I am. I actually think I'm a kind, nice person. I can actually speak to myself as my best friend. I am my own best friend in my head. And most of us are our own worst enemies. And we're with ourselves 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We're constantly in this thing. And then when you can actually learn the techniques and the ways to be able to change how you think of yourself and how you feel yourself, then your brain and your mind actually start to support that and help that, though you need to make those shifts first of all. And then you live in so much nicer world, my inner world, because I'm now kind. And it sounds really, the word kind sounds so trivial, but when you're kind to yourself and loving to yourself, your whole world is different. The whole way that you see the world is different, because you come from a place of acceptance and understanding, which in itself is just, it's the most liberating thing. The most liberating thing anyone can give themselves is peace within themselves, happiness, joy, and then all the other things come from it. Success, abundance, all of those things come from that space. So yeah, it's a beautiful gift we can give ourselves.
Agreed. I mean, I spoke about it a little bit in my kind of introduction of us episode. And I've had a big stretch of time in my life where I was, clinically depressed on medication and everything, just praying and hoping that a truck will come and just run me over to take me out of my misery. And it was such a rough time. And I know that you did it alone in a way, and I have as well, which I kind of, now thinking about it, I was like, man, I could have had such an easy time having someone like us kind of in the picture and helping. But I think back then it wasn't even, I don't know if there wasn't much awareness, or maybe I was just in this cloud. But I always, when I talk to my clients as well, and just when I speak probably to anyone, I probably just drill a hole. Probably Megan's going to be like, yeah, you've said that a million times. I think everything has to start with self-love. Everything has to start with self-respect, because if you're driving a car and you don't like that car, you're not going to put gasoline on time. You're going to run on empty. You're not going to even know where to put the water in, or the oil, or whatever it is that we do with cars, right? And the same goes for our body. Like, if we're not happy within ourselves and appreciative of our own body, we can't make like an executive decision to eat the right food, or to navigate our thoughts to a more positive, kind of relaxed thinking. And so everything kind of comes together in a holistic way, where you have to start from the core, but then everything will bloom around it. And even through hardship, it's actually easier to handle the hardship, because you're coming from that core of self-love and self-respect, right? So you mentioned something really interesting, and I want to touch that because I know you have a really nice story about it, and that's manifestation. I have my own story about it. I'm sure Megan does too, but we're going to leave that for a second, and we want to hear from you. What was the first time that you actually, with manifestation, and discovered how powerful that was? And maybe explain what manifestation is for Megan's mom, I guess.
Yeah, I love Megan's mum already. I want to just say as well, because you mentioned that I did it on my own, and I had a therapist at the time. If without him, I didn't have any medication, and he was the one who introduced me to cognitive phenomenological therapy. He created it, and that's why I studied with him to be able to do it. And I help people now come off medication, anxiety medication, depression medication, through that therapy. So if it wasn't for him and that therapy, I don't know where I'd be. I really don't know where I'd be. So I did get help. I think you need help at that moment. I couldn't have got myself out of that without help. Either people go with medication or they go with therapy. And this type of therapy I love so much, because it's nothing about the history and what you've been through and, dragging up the past. What it is it's very much about where you are now, and it's claiming the parts of you that have been lost, that are empowering, that are strong, that are powerful, claiming those parts of themselves, of yourself, and bringing them forward, so you reconnect to that part of yourself. So I just wanted to clear that up, so that because I think therapy and getting help is really important, whether it's for a coach. I've got a coach. I think you've got a coach as well. It is fundamental for many people to be able to really make that shift. So
no problem. I mean, I honestly, I had a terrible experience with a therapist back then, and that's why I had a therapist. He was just pushing drugs on me, and it took me a while to say, okay, fine, let's do it.
Yeah.
But then I just felt numb. Like, I didn't necessarily feel like it was helpful. And when I was better because of the medication, he literally fell asleep in front of my face while I was talking. So I wasn't
That's
interesting
disgusting.
anymore. So it was terrible.
Yeah.
So for me, and me running towards, doctors and saying, look, there are things that are wrong. And they just go, look, it's all in your head. For me, that was what kind of navigated me towards self exploration and just learning things and trying to figure things out on my own, which led me to the functional medicine. But yeah, thank you for sharing that though. That's important.
And I love how you said that as well, because it's something that I think a lot of therapists do, or a lot of doctors tend to do, is they tend to give medication because but that's the only thing they know what to do. And often, it's the problem that is the key. It's the problem that is the key to your healing. So when we push against it and we resist it, it's that gap that becomes, it becomes louder and louder and more. And like you said, numbing it doesn't do it. It will help. It can help lots of people. And that's why I say medication in that way, it can help a lot of people if it's short term, and there's ways that it can be used in, though. Yeah, it's when you really go into that, where the problem is where often the gold is. It's where the answers are. It's where the healing is. And then people can then transform. But yeah, manifestation, I took us right off key again. No problem. So manifestation, so manifestation, for anybody who's not aware of it, so we are energetic beings, okay? And that's something I was always aware of since I was really young. I was aware of different dimensions. I was aware of different energies. So that was something that came very normal for me. But for someone who hasn't, so Megan's mum and anybody else who hasn't come across this, is we are energy. And one way that we can really see this is that, sometimes you meet someone and you just instantly connect with them before you've even spoken to them. You're feeling them, or you can say, oh, their energy was a bit off, or when they came in the room, they lit up the room. Okay, or they come in there and you're feeling their energy, and they've measured and they've taken photos of people's energy. It's about 2 meters around them. You have an energy body as well as your normal body. So you're giving off energy, and energy vibrates. Okay, everything that's on the planet vibrates an energy, and so you're giving off a vibration all the time, almost like a wave of sound. And what manifestation is basically that you attract towards you whatever you're vibrating at. That's actually even going deeper into the law of resonance, which is it's a similar thing. It's a little bit deeper, but it's a similar thing. So whatever you're believing and feeling is what you're creating in your life. So you can draw towards yourself experiences, and when you start to really take responsibility for your own thoughts, you can really start to play with this. And when you start to take responsibility and start actually actively realizing you can change the way you feel, then you can start bringing experiences, things, money, lots of things that can come towards you. And one of the I've got a great memory, because when I left university, I was really, really sure that I wanted to work with Dior. It was like, at the time, it was the only designer I wanted to work with. And I had no idea how I was going to work with them. Like, none. I come from Milton Keynes. It's a little town in England. And I was living in London. There's no idea how I would get to France and speak to and work with these people. Though I just knew it. I knew it in my heart. And I had a picture of Dior at the time, one of the pictures I love. And I just kept that belief, and I kept that energy that I'm just going to work with them. I remember my boyfriend at the time, he was like, you're mad. How on earth are you going to work with them? And I was like, I don't know. I just know I'm going to. I know I will. And it was that knowing. It was interesting. And then I was just one day, I was at home in my workshop, and the phone rang, and I answered the phone, and it was Dior on the phone ringing me. And I was like, and it was like, oh, it's would you like to come and see the head of LVMH? He would like to see you. The boss of Dior would like to come and see you. And I was like, my God, how did this happen? And then I was like, you can imagine, I had to sit down. So, and how it had happened was that some of the jewelry that I'd done was in a magazine, and the wife of the boss of LVMH had seen it in a hairdresser. When she was in a hairdresser, she looked at it and she took it home, and she was like, I think you should speak to her. And so that's how it came about. So if my brain had have thought to myself, okay, how can this happen? Oh, I know. I'll get into a magazine, and then I'll be in that particular hairdresser in Paris at that moment, and she will come in at them. There's no way you can think of this. But what happens is that we are all connected, and we're all connected with energy, and the universe, this energetic, this universal life force when we're giving out this vibration, things happen, like things happen that can be in a different country or different awareness, because you're giving off this feeling, this awareness, and this knowingness. Because I was doing that, then this happened, but there's no way your brain can think of it. And this is the way that your mind can't understand this. This is beyond your mind. So, because your brain wouldn't be able to work out all those little pieces, but we are in universal energy, and that energy can create miracles, and miracles are happening all the time. And that to me was a miracle. I was like, I can't believe that they just rang me in my house. So yeah, that was my story about manifestation. I'm sure you've both got great stories as well.
We started practicing visualization, manifestation. I don't remember when, but I have quite a few stories about it. But all I can say as a very short kind of story is that my friends hate me because we go anywhere. We'll go to the lakeside in the summer. And for anyone living in Switzerland, you know, like when you go to the lakeside at summer, when there's finally summer in Switzerland, if there's summer, it's jam-packed. Everyone wants to be there. And every single time we leave the house, we get in the car and I go to my family, visualize us parked right in front, right at the entrance of the pool, like at the entrance of the place. And we're all visualizing, we're like talking about it and where we're going to park. And we get there and lo and behold, someone just moves out and clears the way for us. And we always see our friends like schlepping all their stuff and the kids and everything. And they're like, what the hell? Like they hate me because they're like, how did you find that parking? I'm like, visualization. And they really genuinely just can't stand me because they don't believe it, because they, you know, it's so much easier to just continue living the way that you do and just feeling miserable and letting the misery come to you. But when you change your kind of direction of the energy, obviously, but just of the thinking, and you just kind of pinpoint your thinking to something, it works. It just magically works. And I can't explain it. You obviously can explain it so much better than me, but it freaking works. We got our car that way. We got our apartment that way. We get a parking every single time that way. Every single time. I'm not joking. And it's just magic. I love it. It's magical. We adore it, and we do it with the family all the time. And it's awesome. Try it out, guys. If you haven't yet, try it out.
Yeah, I do the parking as well. We call it parking angels. And my husband as well. The parking angels. And that's exactly it. It's visualizing. So you see yourself in a certain situation, or you see the result that you want happening. And at the same time, you feel the feeling. That's the really important thing. You feel the feeling. So you're changing your thoughts and you're changing your feeling. So you feel how it would feel to have that, you know, to experience that, to be doing that. And that brings it towards yourself. But yeah, we do parking as well.
I feel like I don't have a good story here because I'm one of those people that this doesn't come naturally to me, this whole visualization and manifestation. And I've tried affirmations, saying it out loud, and I just feel silly. And it's also one of those things for me. If I don't see it, I don't do it. I don't think about it. Right. So I have to really proactively put words on walls, or, you know, and I also come from the Bible Belt in the States. And so it's also, I have this kind of back of religion. And, you know, when you're talking about it, all I can think about is like how somebody in my hometown would have reacted to that and go, oh, this is just a bunch of woo-woo. Obviously, you know, the Lord has granted you that parking spot for whatever reason. And and as I had, you know, grew up in the church and then moved away, I definitely see like a value, also an energy of going and being with a group of people who are all, like, for example, singing is an incredible form of energy. Anybody who has ever done any kind of singing knows that you can be brought to tears by the right song with the right chords, and you don't understand why you're feeling these emotions. But you're at church, so you always relate this to a religion or wherever you're at. So I don't know, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you approach this kind of energy healing, Reiki healing, and hypnotherapy, these kind of things that I think are just very much in a religious sense, kind of, oh, that's the devil's work, you should never be hypnotized, or energy, come on. I mean, how do you address that kind, or have you had to address that kind of discussion about those things?
Yeah, I go completely. It's really interesting actually when you say it, because even though you might not have noticed yourself doing it with manifesting, we are manifesting all the time. And if you think, have you ever been in a situation where you have, I'll address the religious parts afterwards, just where you've thought of someone and they've texted you, or you've thought of somebody and they rang you like 2 seconds later, because we are connected. So that is a form of manifestation, because it's just it's a connection. You're connecting energy with other people. But as with religion, because I believe in God. I believe in I think it has many names. Source energy. Lots of people have lots of different energy and names. And someone may say God has granted you that parking space, and maybe it's source energy has, or whatever people name it, whatever people call it. And when people mention it as being something that's woo woo, it's interesting because it's actual physics. Like Einstein, when he was studying, he said one of his things that he said is that your imagination is the preview for what is coming in your life. And it is literal. And now they've actually, like, brain studies have actually now caught up with or can prove that what is said, what people say before is the law of manifestation, and it's kind of woo-woo, but actually now they've studied the brain, and actually brain waves that are sent out they literally create a wave. So when you're sleeping, you have a brain wave, and when you're in waking state, you have a brain wave, and it's literally, they can measure it. Okay. And they've measured actually the waves that go out are the waves that you actually attract. So that's actually physics. Although I know at the same time, religion and science there's some parts that can be really disagreed with people, or they decide that don't believe in that, but that's okay. I believe that everyone has a freedom for their own beliefs, and everyone can have their own beliefs, and that if someone doesn't believe something and it isn't in their belief system, and they enjoy and they love their belief system, then I believe that that's okay for them. Nobody has to feel or think what someone else does just because that's what we believe. And when we have that power of being together, you're saying in church, that power of being together and that power of the energy that we can create with others is so powerful. And they've done studies with this as well, with people when they meditate together, which is a form of prayer. It's a form of prayer. Meditation is a form of prayer. Meditation is self-love, okay? And it's breath and self-love. That's what it is. And prayer is also a form of love and devoting. So it's where you put your attention to at that time. And they studied meditation. They did one study, a company, it's like a charity called Heart Math. They did a study it was in Washington in August, when they have the most crime happening. And during that month, they had 2,500 people meditating at various times during the month together. So they were just all coming together, and in the same way as when people come together in church, you feel that energy of when people are together. And they looked at the studies. They actually saw that during that month, crime went down by 25%. And there was no other thing that they could relate it to. They checked the weather, they checked all the things, all the things. And it was, so there's a real power about people coming together. We can make a difference. And the same way as in church, people can make a difference when they come together with the same intention for love, for spreading love in the community. So, and I believe that source energy, God, Allah, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call the higher being or higher self, that is love. That is love. And when we connect to that in whatever way, whether it's doing it in a way that we're consciously changing our thoughts because we want to bring different things towards ourselves in our life, or whether it's a way of that we're just wanting to spread love with others or within ourselves, then I think that is an extremely powerful energy to be connected to, and to understand that we are all connected to it. We're not separate from each other. So yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and we could talk about it all day, religion, science, and spirituality. Though, yeah, that's my take on it and my belief with it.
A different aspect of that, though, and I'm curious about your opinion on this, is we've been addressing it from a positive light of having this kind of good energy. And I immediately thought about mob mentality So I feel like the other, I mean, because obviously lots of craziness going on in the world, but it's like, I can see that very clearly in the physical way. If you're around a group of people and this negative energy, this kind of hatred or anger can be, you can get absorbed into that, especially when there's thousands of people, just like opposite the way if you're with thousands of people who are enjoying themselves and that's why people go to music festivals, right? It's not necessarily the music, it's the fact that there's 1,000 people there having fun, right?
Yeah.
And though I feel like somehow this negativity in the world is also being translated then through social media and news and stuff like that. And I can see this effect on people that I know, like people who in my lifetime were very happy people, happy individuals. And now somehow this negativity has come in. And I think that also goes to what you say on your website in this kind of term stuck or not the best version of yourself. How do people like even recognize the whole like frog in the boiling pot thing, right? If over years and years and years, you just slowly get more negative, you're not depressed, or maybe you're not even, maybe you're not even negative. Like, how does somebody how do they actually come to the realization, I'm stuck, I need help, not depressed? Because I think that's clear. Some people don't know they're depressed, but like, how do people realize that?
Yeah, beautiful. You brought some really amazing subjects up then. So I'm going to go for a couple of them. You're exactly right with this negativity. It also seeps in. It's really important for people to be aware of what they're feeding. You know what you're talking about before, that primary food, what you're feeding yourself. They've done studies on this as well. It's really interesting. If you watch 3 minutes of negative news, just 3 minutes of negative news in the morning, you're 27% more likely to have a bad day. Okay, and that's just 3 minutes. So the amount of people, isn't it, is unreal when you think of it like that. And so the amount of people who are soaking up negativity all the time, and it's like it comes in and it does affect us. So we need to be consciously aware, exactly the same, of what you're feeding yourself. And I think I've said this before, I think I might have even said today, if you're not going to feed yourself rotten food, why would you feed yourself rotten thoughts? And it's the same with what you're taking in. So, the news that you're watching, the people that you surround yourself with, it has an effect on you. What you're reading, what you're hearing, all of these things, your environment does affect you. And the way that you can feel or start to be aware if you're feeling stuck, most people are aware if there's something that's not right in their life. Okay, most people are aware of that in some level. Maybe they're in a job they're not happy with, in a relationship they're not happy with, or maybe everything's okay, but there's something inside of them that's saying, and normally it kind of starts with a little voice, that something they're looking for something else. Something's not enough. They're not feeling fulfilled. There's part of them that is wanting something more, or they're not feeling whole, complete, and happy. If you're feeling whole, complete, and happy, then there's no problem, stuck. But many of us have been in situations, or are in situations, where there's just something we know isn't right. Maybe we're feeling like everything's okay, but I know there must be more. That happens a lot when people come to me, or they are surviving, they're living, they're not thriving. There's a big difference between surviving and thriving. And the awareness of that comes from within you. It's feelings. So it's a feeling. We've got a GPS system in ourselves with our feelings all the time. So we're given this natural GPS system. So when you're feeling off, then it's like, okay, start to listen to your body more. And one of the best ways to do that, one of the best ways to learn to do that, is through meditation or prayer. Okay, so I'll say both things because they're, it's coming into silence. It's being within silence and listening. That's the beauty of prayer, actually, is that you listen. You're there and it's a conversation you're having. So I don't know if that makes sense to you. And same with meditation. You're going into your silence. You're going into your breath, because your breath and your body is always in the present moment. Your body can't go into next week. It can't go into last week. Your brain can. And often a lot of our problems come from worrying about the future or regrets or shame from the past. Yeah. So what your body will do, your GPS system, you've got your feelings will do, will give you, if you come into the present moment, you have this connection to yourself through your breath, where you can start to listen to yourself, listen to what your needs are. And that's what's happened. Most of us are just in here. We've become talking heads. We're just completely in our mind. You know, we're completely in the future and the past, and we're not even living the life that we're in. We're not even present to what we're doing. You know, we might be having an amazing time with people, but our brain is somewhere else. We're not even in it. You know, on holiday, you're worrying about something, you know, you're at a meeting and you're actually thinking about what happened last week. You know, we're not here, we're not present, we're not really fulfilling our life, and actually thriving and enjoying our life in the way that we can do. And it's, yeah, I think that the first awareness in people is that something doesn't feel right. You know, there's something, or or you get the call, like almost like a calling. It's like, I'm not, is this it? You know, that feeling of, is this it? You know, is this all life is? That is a first point to start, is like, actually, there could be more for you. There could be more that you can achieve or fulfill, or more happiness, more joy, more pleasure. You know, there's so much that we can have in our lives, that a lot of us are just settling for a level that's kind of, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But we live one life. We're here in one life.
I had a friend ask me that one time, because she knew I was a coach, and she said, when is it enough to just be enough? You know, Americans are always trying to improve something, right? It's in our nature. Like, it could always be better, right? And I think a lot of that's the comparison of the next door neighbors and their car or their house and things like that. So there's always kind of this level of expectation. But I was a little taken back by the question when I got it. They're like, well, if I'm constantly saying that I should be better at something, when it, you know, when is it enough? When should I be satisfied? Because then I actually live in that moment. And I was like, oh, it's a good point, because, you know, you're constantly bombarded with exactly the messaging that we have on all of our websites of how to, you know, how to feel better, how to look better, how to, everything is better, better, better. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah, I love this. Yeah, thank you, Megan, for bringing that. This is beautiful, because your soul is whole, perfect, and complete. You, as the infinite being that you are, is whole, perfect, complete. There's nothing that you need to do or be or get, because you are already perfect. That's it. Your ego is the thing that always wants more. Okay. So your ego mind, that is your identity. That is the your physical body. That's who you believe you are as here. So this identity, the one that's got all the beliefs, is the one that's always searching for more. It will never be enough. There will never be enough for the ego. It will always be searching for more. And then the connection, the more you connect to your soul, to your truth, because joy and happiness and peace is your birthright. Like I said, you know, when a baby's born, content, not looking, not striving, it's just content. That is who we are. We are infinite love. We are, there's nothing that we need. Though our ego is the one that's constantly, is the one who, that voice in your head that's, you know, often our inner critic. You haven't done enough, you're not good enough. They've got that house, they've got that car, why aren't you? That is not who you are. That's just a set of thoughts and beliefs. Who you truly are, your soul. And we feel it in moments when maybe we're at the top of the mountain, or maybe we're in prayer, or exactly when you're in a group of people, we feel ourselves expanding. That is who you truly are. So what I teach people, and where I come from is that I am whole, perfect, and complete, and I'm open to receive more. I love beautiful experiences. You know, we're here as a human being with this life, so we might as well enjoy it and have fun and do things and have experience and grow and learn and help others. So yeah, I hope that, does that make sense? Have you got any questions with that?
No, that's beautiful, because I you're very eloquent with with the way you've described that. It's something that a lot of people probably need to hear, because they don't know that that's two separate things, like your soul plus this kind of ego version of yourself. So I think that that's perfectly said. It's very, I'm enjoying immensely learning from you, and the way you describe things. I'm just excited.
Oh, thank you. You've said some really amazing questions, both of you today, that have really brought forward this message for people, and also this, these, for me to be able to talk about things that I love, because I'm so passionate about that, because I think so many people are stuck in the mind and they're torturing themselves, and they're not allowing themselves. You can't even say not allowing, they're unaware that there is this beauty, this love, this depth of feeling whole and complete and enoughness. We've got a disease in our society that is, I'm not enough. Everyone feels not enough. It's crazy. Everyone, I'm sure people come to you all the time and they're just, I don't feel enough. Underneath everyone's problem is that they don't feel enough. And we are enough. You're more than enough. You're perfect. You're whole. You're complete. There's this infinite. You are an infinite, amazing, incredible being. And once you start to connect to that and understand that that is who you are, life can be so different in every single level. It can be so different. And I see it over and over again with the people who I work with.
I do have something to share that actually connects everything you guys were just talking about, from when we started talking about religion onwards until this moment. Again, I'm thinking back to when I was deeply depressed and just in the worst place in my life, physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. And I mean, I grew up Jewish. We pray, we talk to God. I married a Christian, so we have everything kind of going on in the family. And my go-to was always to pray. My go-to was always to talk to God, whether it was a positive or a negative aspect. And when I was really just in my lowest, I just remember always complaining to God, just kind of going like, why, God, why, why do I deserve this? Was basically the main kind of message from me to God, going like, what have I done to you? What have I done to deserve this? And I realized that one of the things that I've changed for myself and us as a family, actually, and we talk about this a lot with the kids as well, is when I pray now, I will first start with thank you, right? So I'm immediately thinking of everything that I'm grateful for, which makes me feel like my heart is going to explode out of my chest at that moment, because I'm like, oh my God, there's so much beauty. I mean, I have both my parents are still alive, and I have this gorgeous family and an amazing husband and blah, 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 blah. And so that already kind of makes me feel like, wow, what the hell have I got to complain about, And then we move on to kind of like, please continue taking care of everyone around me as only you can, so that's kind of like the next step. And then we go into like, okay, if we have something specific to pray for, specific to ask for, this is the time, because we were thankful for these things. And I realized that when I was just complaining, when I was on autopilot of like, I'm miserable, what the fuck is happening? Like, why is this going on? It was as if everything that I was complaining about was just getting bigger, right? It was just as if, and someone said it to me in a really interesting way. They said, and you said there's so many ways of saying God, some people say universe. And to me, that's the same, but someone told me like the universe hears what you're talking about, but they don't hear the negative words, right? So please don't catch my house on fire is basically saying like, catch my house on fire, please. It doesn't hear the no. And so when we're thinking of like, oh God, please don't let this happen, just that is actually going to manifest in the opposite way. Whereas when we say thank you, and where we say, this is incredible and this is amazing, and look at all the positive things that I have in my life and all of the great things, and how is that even possible that my kids are 13 and 14 and never broke a bone? They're two boys, wild ones, like all of the little things. You're thinking like, whoa, I literally, all I did was change my thinking. That's all I could have done from a decade ago, more than a decade, it was almost 15 years ago, to now. What have I done? Yeah, I've changed my eating habits, sure. And it definitely made a difference, but not that big of a difference. I could have eaten, I didn't eat so terribly. I could have eaten better. Yeah. But at the end of the day, all of the beautiful things that happen are the things that we're grateful for, that we're thinking about in a positive way. and that makes our heart grow. That's all, that's the only way I can kind of feel it. When you're working with a client and you feel like they're bringing you down, that's not good energy. A friend, a family member, that's not actually good energy. And so when we're with these people, we're intuitively going to be brought down and think more negative, or think, kind of get into that spiral. Whereas when we're around positive people, or people that do us good, it doesn't even have to be the positive people, but just people with good energy, then we're feeling more positive, we're feeling happier. And that does the trick on its own, which I find to be just really, really incredible. I mean, it's so much fun to see that growth, and to see that kind of like, to feel those people around you.
It's so true. And the interesting thing with that as well is that, the only thing that we can control is within us. We can't control the external. So, when you were saying, why is this happening to me? So, what we tend to do is we tend to blame the external all the time. So it's because of maybe my boss, or the weather, or the traffic, or, so we'll blame the external for how we're feeling, when actually what we can do is, and take charge and take ownership of how we feel and what we're thinking, because we often feel it's all happening to us. But when we realize actually that the external, whatever's happening there, is my choice. I'm in traffic, I can either lose it, or I can be here and just think, actually, I've got a bit of time, I can just listen to music. It's all a choice. Everything is all a choice. And when you start to take responsibility for your choices, your thoughts, your feelings, exactly what you said there, Dana, with gratitude is an expansive feeling. So you said, your heart wants to burst, because what happens when you feel gratitude? You expand. When you're feeling fear, you contract. Okay, so it's just, and you can actually, we have these choices all the time. We're just not aware at the beginning that they're choices. And as you said, when you change your mindset, change your beliefs, you'll also start noticing that you just want to be around people who think more positively. You were saying about that mob mentality. You're just going to want to, when you start working on yourself and you start to think, what, I just want to feel better. I just want to feel different. So you start working on that. You start helping yourself, whether it's through books, whether it's through watching things on YouTube, or getting help, or getting a therapist, getting a coach, or any of those things. What happens is that your inner world starts to change. And then you're just like, actually, I just don't want to be around people moaning all the time. I don't want to be around people who got that much hate inside of them. I want to be near you. You just naturally gravitate towards people who are more positive. And then that helps you again. And you lift each other up. You start to, and that's how we can lift and change. And I truly believe that if you want to save the world, you have to save yourself first. You are the one who can make a difference. If you want to change your environment, you need to change yourself first, because then it's like dropping a pebble into water. Your change affects the people around you. What you do matters. How you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, the love that you have for yourself can affect and help everyone around you. It really, really can.
And so true. And it's incredible, because now that you're saying it, I realized that I went through a stage when I went through that kind of growth stage in my life. I started, for lack of a better word, dropping a lot of friends, just going like, look, this is not, nope. And just kind of cold cut, go like, no, I'm sorry. This is not working out for me in a way. And I couldn't explain it back then. But I realize now that if I probably stayed in that same situation that I was in before, that I probably wouldn't have been able to grow as much as I did. And I hope these people are listening, because I still love them deeply. But it was not the right energy for me, and it wasn't the right place for me to be in order to grow. And it's just incredible how just releasing, it's like kind of like stones kind of clinging onto your back. And when you start just kind of releasing them, all of a sudden you're able to come up and get some fresh air, because you don't have that weight weighing you down. And it's, sometimes we have to do that, even with family members. I find that sometimes we just have to make a decision to not have a person have so much space in our life, so that we're able to grow, so that we're able to break free in a way.
And then we can be an inspiration or not to the people around us. It can happen, and you can make a difference just by you changing. That's what happened with me. When I started to transform and change, people around me started to notice, and they were like, oh, what's happening? What's going on? What's happening? They get intrigued. They're like, oh, what are you doing? You know, my husband now meditates every day, which he didn't for many years. We've been together 19 years. He's been the last few years. And because he was just like, oh, what is it seems like it's really good. It's doing something to you. I want to try it, you know. So that can happen with people as well. So you can also lift them up, you know.
Yeah.
If they're ready, you know.
Yeah. I have a quote on my wall over here. The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion.
Oh, I love that. That's so juicy. Exactly. Because words are easy, right? Actions and energy and who you are, that makes a difference. That makes a difference.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So Lesley, there was one more thing that I wanted to ask you about, because I was reading your website, obviously, and doing my research on you before we were talking. And one of the things that I've seen floating around is limiting beliefs and beliefs. And I guess, again, it took me a little while to understand this, and maybe it's still difficult to grasp. Like, what does it mean when you want to help someone like get over their limiting beliefs? Because again, religious background, beliefs, we don't want to get over them. We have them. So
yeah,
what does that mean?
Yes, yeah, I'm glad you asked that. And it's interesting because I use this language all the time. I forget that sometimes people aren't aware of the difference. So we have beliefs, and we have some beliefs that maybe are holding us back. Okay, so we have a belief, say you have a belief that, what would be a good one? Could be a belief that you're not the kind of person who can change or you're not the kind of person who can change the way they eat, or I got a good one. I'm just that kind of person. I'm a morning person, or I'm a night person. Their beliefs, okay? Or I've never been good with numbers. Okay, that's a belief.
That's
right?
A very popular one.
Yeah, or it could be I'm too old, I'm too young. Okay, things that limit you. So things, ideas and beliefs that you have about yourself that could limit you, you know. I'm not clever enough, I don't know enough, all of these things, you know. I need to learn more before I start my business. These are beliefs that you could be holding you back. Does that make sense, Megan?
Oh, totally. As a person who's just starting a business, this is a very big limiting belief right now.
Yeah. So we do this, and what we have is we have a belief, and a belief normally comes from something that you've been told when you're young. Okay, it doesn't even belong to you. I see it with my daughter who's 7 at the moment. She's coming home and she's like, "Oh, I'm not fast," or I'm not very good at climbing. So then what she's going to do is she'll start to add that into her identity, and that will become more concrete. And we create then glass ceilings for ourselves. So we stop ourselves, and because it's just a thought, because if you think something enough, it becomes a belief. Okay, that's how beliefs are born. Basically, they're just thoughts that you think over and over and over again. And very quickly, we can change beliefs. I can help people change beliefs with a really, really quick exercise, because normally part of you believes it, though there's also part of you that knows it's not fact. Okay, it's not a fact that you are too old or too young to maybe, I don't know. Oh, actually, in some ways, you know, depends on what you want to do. But if you want to start a business, you're never too young or too old, right? So it's not a fact. And then what we can do is we use the parts of your brain and your own personal experiences to change that from things that have happened in your life that counteract that belief. So it's I can do a very quick exercise that takes about half an hour to actually change a belief. And then afterwards, you look at it completely differently. And then it allows you to then move forward in your life in a different way, if that makes sense. And that's something actually I wanted to offer your listeners, is that anyone who'd be interested in a half an hour belief hack with me, because I love what you're doing and I love the message that you're spreading. Anyone, they can contact me directly. We'll just do 30 minutes and we'll get a belief that you have that's holding you back in some way, and we'll change it so that you can leave feeling freer and more able to do what you want to do.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's the belief thing, I think, is also, I know this might get us off into a completely different tangent, but somebody was recommending a book. It was a YouTuber, and they were talking about books, and one book was about parenting and about how we tend to parent for the things and give love and affection for the things that the kids do. Right? Oh, you got an A, great job, that's awesome. You know, rather than really, it didn't make any sense until he said it. I'm like, oh wait, no, that's completely the way it works. Where you want to just love the individual, but we tack to ourselves these external things in the same way of your beliefs, but also as a parent-child relationship. The child often thinks that they have to do well in something to make sure, because I mean, I grew up in a family where we were very loving, always kisses and hugs, and very physically loving family. But I know some people aren't growing up this way, and then they only get that positive reinforcement when something positive happens. And I think somehow that ties all in also with the beliefs, right? Because that's what you're talking about, even at a young age. Oh, you have 3 kids. This one's the shy one. This one's the outgoing one. I've heard Donna say this already about her kids. And when they hear this, they go, well, I'm the shy one. Mom said I'm always the shy one, or I'm the good one. So I have to be the good one. Right.
Yes,
so they
absolutely.
kind of adopt exactly what you see in them, but you're reinforcing it so it becomes stronger, even though it maybe is like a phase or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not them, it's just the behavior. So it's not them, but people take it and they internalize it, and it becomes the inner critic, or it becomes a label that they then almost live into. And that's it. And you can very quickly change that. So a label, you can quickly change that with so if someone's been shy, I'm the shy one, by knowing that it's not who you are, and actually seeing times in your life where you haven't been like this. And I do a little bit more stuff goes on with the brain when we do this tag. Stuff in your brain to be able to release it in such a quick way. Though it is exactly that. It's knowing that that's not you, it doesn't belong to you. And when you can give yourself new labels. You can start to say, actually, I'm done with that. I'm done with the fact I'm not that label. I'm not that story. So what we tend to do is we live inside these, and then we think, oh, well, I can't do that. It's interesting. A client of mine recently, she's always been really quiet. She had social phobia. She didn't want to be around people. She really felt challenged being, she didn't trust any form of connection with people that she wasn't really close with. And we did some of the deeper inner work, and we found a part of her that actually really is very social and is really loves being around people. And she literally didn't know this part of her existed. She was like, I didn't even know it was there. And we brought that forward, and we started to actually bring it forward so that part was starting to operate more in the world. And she had an event that she goes to every year, and normally she dreads it. She's like, oh, I have to do this thing. And she said this time when they said, she was like, I'm in, like that. And she was like, who was that? And now it's amazing. She's creating her own network. She's like really valuing friendship and feeling open and happier. And she's been able to accept herself for the first time ever in her life. She said, I feel complete, like I accept who I am. And I know that I'm enough. And that is so powerful. Just from changing those stories, letting go of those stories, and allowing yourself to step into who you really are rather than who you've become, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, when you were saying that, all I could think of was my story with ADD, where I grew up, my parents kept telling me that I was lazy. That was my kind of, tag, you're lazy. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm not lazy, because I was never a lazy person. And I think Megan can agree to that. I could say a lot of things about myself, but lazy is definitely not one of them. And so when I learned, when I was 23, 24 years old, I learned that I was actually ADD. I was bawling. I was crying so hard, because I was like, I knew I'm not lazy, and just that understanding of why I wasn't getting good grades. That's all it was. I wasn't getting good grades. I was studying, I was doing all the work, but I wasn't getting good grades. So I was lazy. Right. And so something that, and Megan's right. I totally, have tags for my kids. I'd like to think it's true, but it's probably not. But what we do with the kids, what we started doing from a very young age with them, if they did something that we don't agree with, that made us angry or something, we would start the sentence by, I love you, but I'm disappointed at what you have done, like the action that you've taken. Right. And that turns it around, because it's not like, you're a bad boy. You should not have done that. You always do this stuff. Da, 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 da. It's more like, look, you're a good person. You're a loved person. Nothing you're going to do is going to make us love you more or less, because we love you infinitely. But that action, you probably should have thought about that. You know what I mean? Like you probably should have taken another route. And so it makes them think, because they then know nothing that they're going to do is actually going to change the way that we feel about them and appreciate them and love them. But their actions can affect people around them, and they need to think about those preferably before they're done, so that they don't hurt anyone on the way. And I think that just turning that around, and again, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, we're definitely not perfect parents in the slightest. We did some things good, but other things we totally broke them. But there are certain things that you just want to see how you're communicating with your kids in order for that spiral not to continue, because the way our parents have been raised by our grandparents, and the way that we have been raised by our parents, and the way that we raise our kids, with every generation it changes. And we'd like to think that it betters, but I know for a fact that we're dragging along a lot of things that have been said to our ancestors, that we're still saying, finish the food off your plate type of thing, or whatever it may be, right? Those silly sentences that we catch ourselves and we're like, that was really stupid. That meant nothing. My kid doesn't know or understand why he needs to finish his plate because there are hungry kids in Africa. Like, why can't I just ship that food to Africa then? Give it to them. I'm not hungry anymore. You know, all of those little sentences that literally don't make sense. And so to just think of how we communicate these things, to think of how we actually empower our kids instead of dragging them down knowingly or unknowingly, I think that's so important. We need to fix the way that we've not fixed, but like we need to better the way that we raise our kids so that they're feeling more empowered, I think.
Be conscious. I think that's the thing. I've got a really great story, actually. There was a woman that's to do with handing things down over the generations. There was a woman and she was cooking a lamb and she cut the top of the lamb off, and the person was there, was like, oh, why did you do that? She goes, I don't know, my mum did that. So they went and asked her mum, and her mum was like, I don't know, my mum did that. And then they asked her mum and she said, oh, the pan was too small.
Unreal.
So you end up doing stuff.
Yeah.
You have got no reason why you're doing it. You have no idea why you're doing it.
My husband says that a tradition for Americans is something that has happened to boomers twice.
I love that.
Well, I think before we go down any other rabbit holes with you, because I feel like there's 15 more rabbit holes, we should probably call it a day for this episode. And we will put links to all of the ways to get in touch with you. But I think your website is just straight up lesliecalvo.com.
Yeah, lesliecalvo.com. Yeah. And
which is pretty easy. Yeah. And do you have another good one?
Instagram, Lesley Calvo Coaching, super easy.
Okay.
Yeah, my email is leslie@lesliecalvo.com. So it's super easy.
Super simple.
Yeah.
Great. I see now why Donna loves hanging out with you. So thank you, Donna, for sharing Lesley with me and introducing us. And thank you, Lesley, for explaining everything so well. Yeah, what a pleasure. I'm very happy to have met you. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Thank you both for inviting me and giving me the opportunity. Yeah. And it's been wonderful. I've enjoyed every minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you're still listening. Great. Okay, now I can tell you about my 12-week goal setting session. So in this 1-hour session, I'm going to help guide you through a powerful process inspired by the best-selling book, The 12-Week Year. I know. Everybody at this time of the year starts to think about year-long goals. And I would argue that year-long goals are really hard to contextualize. What is going to be happening in a year from now? You have no idea. But 12 weeks gives you a little bit better understanding because you kind of already have your calendar booked out for the next 12 weeks. Kind of know what's going to be going on. So if you can focus your goals on the next 12 weeks, you can make some really big actionable steps towards your long-term vision. So in this 1-hour session, we do talk about long-term vision. We talk about where you want to be. We talk about what your 5-year, 10-year, 3-year, all those goals are. But that's only a brief part. We know, we see the long distance view, but let's break that down. And then we get into the 1 to 3 strategic 12-week goals that are going to get you to those long-term vision. Then we're going to put that into a really cool action plan with like checklists and timing and all that jazz to make sure that you are clear and that you have accountability to get those goals done. And then that's not it. Then we are going to tackle your roadblocks because you know you have roadblocks. So we're going to tackle those roadblocks. We're going to create a plan to overcome them. So you know when you start to self-sabotage, you know what you can do to get around those roadblocks. Okay, so if this is interesting for you, it is only 1 hour of your time and it's only 45 Swiss francs. I host this gig over on Fiverr, but I'm also going to put a link down in the show notes. So if you're interested, hit me up.